I love this trail. And this morning, I finally got to see what someone else's brain looks like with the Muse app and the Muse Monitor app. And I took a couple screenshots with the Muse Monitor, and turns out it doesn't look much different than mine. There's that same 54 hertz band and the same band in the orange range as well as in the green beta range. So all that stuff I said about powerful ascension frequencies isn't necessarily valid. Unless, of course, my brain's so powerful it's entraining those brains around me. But it was an interesting way to think about it for a day or two, or a few minutes, and that's usually what my dialogue with myself is all about. Just interesting ways to think about it, about something for a very short period of time, as opposed to a way that our brain often operates is to have a few ideas ruminating all the time. Another way is to have so many thoughts and ideas and things to wonder about and ways of looking at things and perspectives and ways to think about things that they just don't take hold for very long, to the point where I don't even really know what I was talking about a couple minutes ago a lot of the times. But having this repetitious structure of very few ideas about myself has made way for not very much repetition at all and having so many ideas, because it seems like having few ideas on repeat creates this epiphenomenon of an illusion of self. But when that isn't happening, there's not a few ideas repeating, relatively few, 70,000 thoughts a day, of which however many are very repetitious, creating this feeling of having a self, thinking those thoughts. But when there's no repetition, really, there's little memory, then there isn't so much of a feeling of a self, and it's the non-self perspective that leads to having lots of different thoughts and ideas. So, I just made that up now, and seems reasonable, but like everything else, I'll forget about it and move on to something else. And it's not necessarily relevant the next moment. And I'm not trying to make it relevant or remember it to be relevant. So this is just really showing what a different brain neurotribe is like, having lots of ideas and thoughts and insights, none of which are any more important than anything else. And that's another quality or problem of the self, is that we think that our ideas are important to us. And that almost creates the phenomenon of the me, in that if I have these ideas that I think are important to me, that creating the importance creates a me structure, because if none of them were really important, they would just be passing through and just made note of as possibly interesting, but not to be clung onto or believed. So making certain ones important, whether it's having a Muse headband and feeling like there could be some kind of ascension frequency for a couple of hours, or just walking in a park, none is more important than anything else, really. And then this morning I went and I picked blackberries. Turns out they're just on the other side of the fence from where I'm living now. So I had a lot of blackberries for lunch, and they're fresh right off the vine. That is so healthful, which is great. And this morning I woke up kind of late. I'm back to sleeping a little bit longer again. It seems like when I sleep longer I have less insights. And that's okay, because I need to catch up anyways. But I went to bed around 11 maybe 11:30, and I woke up at 9:30, so I'm back to about 10 hours. But it's good to just sleep, and it feels good. And I'm staying up a little later to have a little quiet time to myself at night. And like I showed at the end of the last video, I tried some of the other soundscapes on Muse. And this morning I had a smoothie with coconut milk and blueberries and spinach, as well as nopal, which is something from a cactus, and flaxseed meal, and a little bit of moringa powder. And I also bought some spirulina yesterday because on that optimal wellness test I did back earlier this year, it says that spirulina is really good for helping the body deal with radiation exposure from EMFs and stuff. And I do have some of those exposures that showed up. So it's also good for other things. It was one of the things from that report that I thought that I may as well adopt. And then another one I got some turmeric powder. I didn't put that in my smoothie, that would be weird. But I had a bit of that with some coconut milk and some black pepper. Apparently that's a really good way to take turmeric. And I had a spoon of coconut oil. So I'm getting back onto some of these healthy type things, and I'm on my walk. And yesterday I was short on steps, so I just bounced on my trampoline for 15 minutes, which gets me about 2,000 steps. So that's a way I can top up my steps if I don't get enough in a day. And the other thing I found out by allowing someone else to try the headband and the Muse app with the meditation was that this other person, who isn't really an experienced meditator at all, was able to stay a lot more calm than I do. They only had 2 recoveries and they only spent 3 seconds in the active, and it seemed like their graph was more in the neutral and calm area than mine. So that is a bit interesting, because maybe my brain is just really active even when it's calm. I don't know what that all means. I'd have to do a few more comparisons, maybe a lot more, but it's interesting. So coolest thing ever happened. I finished my first lap in this park, and I was planning on doing another one, but I decided that I should go pee. So I walked out of the way to go use the restroom, and when I was walking towards the restroom, I saw something fly in front of me, and I was like, what was that? And then I looked, and it was an owl. It was the biggest, coolest owl I've ever seen in nature. And even in California, I saw a couple of owls at night because they were in somebody's yard because they had owl boxes. And I saw an owl once at the top of a tree in the dark. I could only see its shadow. But this was an owl in broad daylight, right near where I'm staying now, back home. So I'm really glad that I decided to use the restroom because I saw the owl. So I'm really glad that I decided to use the restroom because I got to see the really cool owl. And I'll put some footage in